Can we just check?
Hello.
Yes, that's brilliant. Vlad is here. Dr. Adil, is your mic working? Can we just do a quick check? It should be.
Hello.
Oh, perfect. Great. Well, I know this audience is very keen to learn from your perspectives, and I've loved our chats that we've had in the run-up to this session, really looking at the future cities and the future of how we design, how we plan, how we create urban developments that are smart. So, let's talk a little bit about your involvement in these projects and what you've been doing and some of those insights that you've got. And you come from a perspective of Roshan's developments, don't you, Dr. Adil? And all of those things that you're doing to do with developing smart cities. And when we spoke, you mentioned that so technology isn't just a gadget. It's not just about putting the gadget into a city. It's all about an enabler and enhancing the quality of life for the people in those cities. So can you start by giving us an example of sort of what you believe a truly great smart city is, how that needs to look?
Thank you so much, and my honor to be, this is my third season for Real Estate Forum. I believe smart cities is not anymore about only technology. It's basically the digital glue that I call it glue the three things. I call the PSP, people, space, and what are the possibilities that we would like to bring to the cities for the future. So inspiring community is basically a digital sense of belongings that can make people's life easy and access. Many examples we can share today. We can start that today here in the Kingdom, we have very amazing benchmarking, the local benchmarking for us that we can tell the people what we are doing as smart cities principles. We have the muscles and we have the brain. And in the same time, we became an attractive cubicle for talent. If I go with what we are doing with Roshan today, in Roshan, we embrace these concepts. Building community, we go beyond just to a space. We try to create experience, connection, and attractiveness. And every time I tell people that bringing the smart principles to your real estate developments is what makes Roshan has a long waiting list when we look to the sales or marketing of the units. If you talk about the single units or the multi-family units, we have really a waiting list for those who are interested to own from Roshan. It's not about the unit, it's about the community, the livability. It's about the smart environment that we are building. If we look to different samples about inclusivity, if we talk about livability, and if we talk about the sense of belongings, we looked to the history. Many cities in the world, they faced huge challenges in health, safety, security. They faced huge issues in infrastructure. But when you think about that, bringing smart principles to be part of the development, you are gonna be amazed how these cities achieved an amazing journey. If we look to Tokyo, for example, they have a vision which is for 100 years. They started in 2015. Before 2015, what they faced actually, they faced low e-services. They had a service before 2015, by the way, but they have low services. The IoT was not doing its job properly. Plus, there are kind of like inequality between who going to have the Wi-Fi or to make your life easier, either in education, job, health, and so on. Barcelona and Superblock, when they adopted this smart system, they increased the walkability by 40+%. percentage you can walk in the city. If you look to Tokyo, they reach to around 30% of the public spaces, they have free Wi-Fi. And 40% of all the parks across the whole country, they created a smart entry to protect the quality, to protect the waste management, to protect also the landscape features, smart irrigation system, a lot of things. I'm not going to go into that deep. If you look to Medellin in Colombia, it used to be called the crime capital. In the 90s, it was #1 in the world with a high crime rate. How did they use or adopt the smart city principles? I'm going to come to that later, and thank you so much.
Yeah, they're fascinating examples. It's lovely to see these concepts being brought to life in very real ways rather than remaining as theories. And Vladislav, you've got some quite interesting perspectives about the future of cities and the directions that we're going in and where maybe technology can play a slightly different role.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Dr. Adel, for this introduction, this example. So I'm overseeing most of BCG's project in the cities area. And many people ask me, so what do you learn about this project? What have you learned? So I've calculated we've done over 1,000 projects over 5 years. And my one-line conclusion is cities are quickly becoming obsolete.
I mean, that's quite a major statement. Maybe we just need to give them a moment to absorb what you've just said.
It's not a statement which makes you relax, right? We all live in cities. We have our homes in cities, our work in cities, our friends live in, cities are becoming obsolete. What is meant by this is that most cities, in most dimensions, they're not ready really for the future because the future is arriving faster than the city can deal with this. Why? Cities are infrastructural solutions to people who want to live together and to want to be happy, right? Yeah. That's how cities started, right? Rather than living everyone individually, people saw that, real estate can be cheaper if it's close to each other. Mobility can be easier if you walk for 1 hour and not work for 10 hours between villages, etc. Mm-hmm. And what we see is several things. First of all, cities, as I said, they are supposed to make people happy who are inside the cities. And urbanization is going to continue. By 2050, another wave of people is going to come to cities. The population of major cities is going to double. Think about this, double. Cities are infrastructural solutions. Infrastructure is not that quick to change. Mm. So think about doubling the population. Where it happened in some cities, it became a major disaster. So one challenge is the population. The other challenge is the mix of the population. On the one hand, you have more senior people. More senior people, they're more and more. The average age is increasing in the cities. And the more senior people, what they do is they don't work. And they actually quite expensive to maintain, right? If I can use this term. Younger people are another generation which says, I would like to work more. I would like to work less, sorry. I would like to make more money, but I would like also to live a beautiful life and have a lot of free time. And I don't know if you can see the slide here. Yeah, I'm going to show this in a second, but the very simple point as an introduction, young people will switch between the cities, and young people will leave the cities where they're not rooted anymore, like we were, and they will go to another city. Hopefully they will go to Riyadh, they will go to other cities in the Middle East. They will just vote with their feet. And Dr. Adel, you spoke a little bit about infrastructure, mobility. We all speak about better mobility solution, technology. We're going to speak about this. But the simple point is, despite what we say about, more pedestrian infrastructure, more micromobility, people using their feet to move between different points in the city, the number of personal cars is going to double by 2040. And it's not my estimate, it's World Economic Forum estimate. The number of personal cars is going to double worldwide by 2040. Wow. Our city is ready for this.
And that's even in a world where we're trying to move to walkable cities and car-free cities, isn't it?
And then there is one more expectation, which is actually quite difficult, which is, you see this, right, with the globalization First, we used to have growth. Now we have deglobalization, geopolitics. So the global growth is slowing, and the politicians globally say, you know, our people are not getting happy because, you know, they want to make more money and they want to buy more. The global economic system is now less suited towards this. And everyone is turning to cities to solve this. Why? Because 95% of future economic growth, 95% is going to come from cities. It's not going to come from rural or from towns or from small cities. It's going to come from big cities. And cities are not, they don't have a plan to deliver faster economic growth. So for all these reasons, what we're saying is the cities are becoming obsolete, and the technology infrastructure needs to help them find the solution to all these challenges. Yeah. And this is why, and then I'm done, this is why, and I'm going to speak a little bit more in detail about this. This is why for the last 7 years, BCG runs a major study. Every time it's 2 to 3 million data points on what will the future residents need in the city. And here you have an example of the dimensions that we measure. I'm going to speak a little bit more about this in a second, but the main point is cities are becoming obsolete. Technologies will need to find a solution. In order to find a solution, you really need to understand what future generations of residents in cities will want.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about this challenge of creating, designing, building cities for future generations, because it's where we're all at. Yes, we have to recognize diversity, and cities have to have a lot of provisions for different, disparate groups of people. But ultimately, we are creating cities for future generations. And Dr. Adol, you've spoken a lot about cities needing to sort of go through major surgery rather than just putting a sticking plaster on some of the, or you talk about giving them painkillers, don't you, for some of those urban issues and challenges that we're facing. So, you know, I know that we're going to talk about some of the solutions, but what are the pain points? What are the issues that we're coming up against?
I would like to continue from Vlad's point and to answer your question. Usually, it's very important for any real estate entity in any place, any spot in the world, that the most important thing is to define the DNA or the genetic codes that I can say the project is meeting the livability. And when I say livability, the word livability is a concept. When I say sustainability, it's a concept. What are the strategies and the tools that we need to use so we can say this city or this place needs a surgery, not just a painkiller?
Yeah.
I was talking to some of my friends and some of my senior leaders that, do you want us to use Advil and Solpadeine to solve a problem, or is it surgery? Completely different. Surgery is very important for long term because you're gonna really see the positive impact on the economy, in the environment, in the social, and you're going to be a benchmark later on when you are a unique. This is why it's very important for us that learning, benchmarking, and integrating. If I'm going to use a sample or a case study or a benchmark from Colombia, one of the cities that I really love to talk about because they had huge, tons of problems in the last decades. High crime rate. When I say high crime rate, you are talking about 400 plus per 100,000 citizens a year. If you talk about no public spaces, almost public spaces were not existing. If we talk about the transportation and the mobility and the connectivity, the city itself, inside the city, is defragmented. And the most crime rate, when you look at it, it's located in the upper hillside of the city. What did they do? Number one, they brought the IoT and they put it in the public realm. When I say public realm, means streets, open space in neighborhoods, parks, anything considered as a void in the city, they put the IoT. Why? Sensor to collect data, to monitor live, This is number one. Number two, they put to establish 30 parks with a size of 10,000 plus square meter. Number three, they put something called smart connectivity. They connected the downtown with the last edge or boundary in the city itself. I'm talking now about Medellin in Colombia. Also, they went to their areas that had high crime rate, and they built 200 schools, community centers, gym, and they made an outdoor sport facilities. When you look at these, you can find that, wow. Now, they are not looking to develop the cities. They're looking to produce new, healthy generation.
Yes.
Education, job, and so on. Now, if you look to Medellin, it's the rank of Medellins in the, it's called International Prosperity rank. It's number 47, top 100. In the past, it was not in the map. So it's a very important day when you look at the infrastructure, how you're going to connect the city, because at the end of the day, as Madeleine said right now, that the city itself, it's mainly thinking about the citizen as first priority. Mm-hmm. What are the things that I need to provide for X and Y? Yeah. This is a very amazing case that I really like. Another case, I'm not going to spend much in that case, is when you look to Copenhagen. They had a very amazing park. And between 2005 and 2012, this park used to have a really high crime rate. And the parks were dark. The lighting was, there is no maintenance for the lighting. They put light as a sensor to do three things: measure the weather, monitor the crime and the behavior outside, and the third thing is to send live messages to the command center if there is a tree need to be irrigated, if there is a problem with the waste management, if there is a security issue, anything that you can imagine. Then later on, after 2 years, these parks became so crowded. All the citizens, they come before everyone gets scared to go to that parks. And now Copenhagen is in the top 10 livable city, smart cities, and walkable cities.
Wow, that's major surgery, some of those things, as you've said. I mean, Vladislav, you probably want to build on that, because you were intriguing in your point about young people not staying rooted in a city. So loyalty, obviously, or heritage or history isn't keeping people in one place. What's going to attract them to the next city?
Exactly. If we look at the slide, there is if we can.
Yeah, can you pop the slide back on?
Yeah.
Thanks.
The young people are much more pragmatic in deciding where to live, right? My generation, it's kind of, I'm from this city and I kind of want to always be there, or at least return there, many times in the year, etc. Young people, they look, first of all, they have half of their lives in their pocket, right? They are on social media, they connect to the bank, they don't need to go physically, they buy, they get food delivered, they talk to on video, actually very high quality to their families and friends, etc. And they actually work also through the phone and through the laptop, so they less, anchored in the physical space and in the land of their ancestors and their family. We may discuss whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't think it's an entirely good thing, but this is our reality. What do we do with this, right? And therefore, we need to understand how they make this decision. So this slide, actually, it looks boring. It's a consultant slide, but actually, this is the answer to the question, how young people will decide between the cities. So, quickly, number one, and this is not just an idea, this is 3 times 3 million data points, so almost 10 million data points. We studied 75 cities, so many residents inside the city, and we asked about 100 questions. So it's quite a quant in terms of the study. And what we see is that they want to come to the city. At the surface, everything is clear. They come to the city to make money. That's called economic opportunity. Then they want to live a good life, right? That's livability. They actually want to be surrounded by neighbors that they trust and the friends that are around them. And also the other part of social capital, they want to feel good as being associated with the history and the future of the city, right? I want to be part of something bigger. The city tells me, you know, you're part of this journey. We're in it together. Then you have, very importantly, speed of change. People do not want to live in a beautiful city that doesn't change.
Yeah.
They want change.
100%.
People want change.
100%.
Then they have the future ones, and I'm not going to talk about that now. I'm going to talk about this later. But what we see, the current trend, something that we see already is the following. Number one, on the economic opportunity, they don't want just to make money. They want what is called investable surplus. So basically their income per month, minus cost of living per month, minus tax per month, or we can calculate per year, it should be a positive number, a big number, and over the lifetime, by the way, lifetime is different between different cities, they would like to accumulate a certain number, right? That's how they see. The problem with this, for instance, is in Paris, Zurich, in London, if you're an average person, your number is negative. So if you stay in the city with your average income, average tax, and average cost of living, you are quickly using your savings. This is why people do not live in London, Paris, and Zurich. They live outside, and further outside. We're going to talk about this in a second. That's one. What's interesting also is that livability there quickly becomes what is called personal time wealth. Well, personal time wealth is very interesting, is that young people basically tell us, I want to live several lives. What this means is they take the 24 hours, minus 8 hours they sleep, minus work that they consider time wasted, right? Let's say work 8 hours, minus commute time, in Riyadh is 52 minutes per day, let's say 1 hour, minus time for daily chores. You know, you need to, wash your clothes, you need to prepare your food if you do it at home, you need to, clean something, etc. And you have some number. And this number is something like 2 hours for an average person in London. And this number is, for instance, if you take an extreme, Maputo in Mozambique, it's like 20 minutes. Why? Because people walk to work, so they walk 2 hours to go to work and 2 hours back. So they lose 4 hours just to commute. And also when they go back home, they don't have a washing machine. They don't have a cleaning device, right? They do everything by hand. So it's only 20 minutes. So then you multiply this remaining time, wealth of time, over your lifetime by the intensity of experiences that a person can get in the city. And London, New York, Tokyo is amazing, right? We calculate this quite scientifically. And back to, cities like Lahore or Maputo, not very nice cities, unfortunately, it's the same. You basically see the same tree and the same, animals every day. You don't have the intensity of your experience, of your life, such that you can remember this. After 10 years, you can share this with your children and grandchildren. And so then when we calculated the amount of life units, we see that in London it's like 15, in Maputo is like half. So people live half of what they would like to expect in terms of fun life in Maputo, whereas in London they live, 15 lives. And so the point is, and then we also can cover other dimensions if we have the time, but the point is, future cities will need to design and use the technologies in order to solve these issues. Yeah. And because there's more and more competition, look at Riyadh, look at Dubai, look at Singapore. Cities are changing. These cities are changing much faster than cities in Europe, for instance. I see that cities in Europe are becoming a little bit of a, luxury spending and, nice tourist location. They're not growing and changing as fast as cities in Middle East or in Caspian regions, or even cities in Africa are doing a good job, some of them. So we need to understand the city leaders or designers, and they need to understand that if they don't make a drastic change with the infrastructure and reshape, they will be, as I said, obsolete, and they will be taking over this trend of young and high potential people moving to the better cities.
Gosh, so I think we know what some of the challenges are, and with all of that in mind, as we are sort of starting to get to the close of this, you've got so much insight to share. But with that in mind, Dr. Adil, what should developers, planners, architects, designers, investors be doing to build smarter cities, to address some of these challenges? What can we be doing in practical terms?
Thinking about, I see most of the audiences here are from the young generation. And if you talk about the concept of Instagrammable, this is a concept now, it's common. Everyone now, when you go to take a selfie with the place, this means the place has something that attracts them. When I met Vladis last year, I just came from New York, and one of the spots that I love to visit and I liked the experience there was the Hudson Yard. And I believe most of you know Hudson Yard. Hudson Yard used to be an abandoned rail place with few people, few jobs. It's almost like a rare that no one actually wants to live in there. They developed this area with a very nice architecture, unique landmark. The good thing is they developed everything out of the box. The mindset that put the concept was amazing. They made kind of like an alliance out of smart architects with the local brains, and in the same time, they funded with the partnership. Going through the story of the real estate development, they built 5 skyscrapers for offices. They built 4,000 residential units. They built a unique landmark architecture, which is called the Vessel, it looks like a honeycomb buildings. And the most important thing is they provided a job for 10,000, you call it position. What does it mean? It means that smart mindset to how to develop and smart system to adopt, this can provide a very unique spot in the city. Number one, this spot in New York, only this spot, by the way, generates $19 billion a year. Search, you'll find that's amazing. A spot in a city generates $19 billion a year. Number two, 2 million international visitors. They visit that spot in Manhattan. They saved 30% from the electric bill that if you're going to develop it in a very classic, conventional real estate development, this way of development reduced 30% in the electric bill that they're using because all the parking spots used the renewable energy for lighting, for irrigation system, and so on. To answer your question, there is no a definite answer.
No, sad really. We'd love a magic wand.
Exactly. They have to think about, they look at the problem, how people they solve the problems. And let me tell you something. Today in the kingdom, we have a lot of stories to share with a lot of numbers. But I like to share the people who suffered years and years in environmental dilemmas and in security issues and to think more about how they brought PPP to be part of funding, how they made the alliance to bring the international architects. By the way, they brought international individual architects, not offices. And they brought the local mindset from the local governmental authorities. They thought together, they brought the sketch, and they brought an amazing, smart cities principal scholars in waste management, irrigation system. They did not go with the classic approach, with all respect to LEED approach, or how can we be taking certification. This was not in their mind. In their mind is to have something more environmental design with the smart principles. Go and look to that case exactly, because this is one of the most successful cases in the whole world, that a very small spot in a huge city generate 19 B a year. And this is an amazing spot. Now, when you go there, you can call like Minister of Interior or Wizard Dakhliya, whatever. They brought a lot of security to that space because they see it as a national treasure, not only to the state, but to the whole country.
It's a phenomenal example, and I would encourage everyone
Exactly.
to look
Yeah.
into it more. And I'm afraid we are going to have to really get
Thank
into
you.
our closing now. So, Vladislav, given the framework that you've shared with us, which is fascinating, how are we going to be doing these things to really create real lasting lasting value for residents, rather than using technology for technology's sake? What do we need to be doing to make our cities smarter but human?
One person on stage will not answer this question.
No,
Everyone
we
here
could talk for hours.
will answer this question, but I will share a couple of ideas, a couple of solutions that the technologies
Sure.
have made possible. One is, think about commute. Typically, what is commute? Commute is, you think about, hustle, it's difficult, you're in the car, maybe you have a driver, but then, you're trying to make a phone call, and, it's difficult because the line is not good, and also it's noisy, and also it's stressful, and, that is commute. But, and remember, in my example of young people want less commute. They say, commute is waste of time, wasting one time per day, that's, my precious life, I will never recover from this 1 hour, Now, technologies made an experience positive commute. Look at these trains that we see here. Riyadh Metro is actually very nice. And in many cities across the world, you see commute is less of a hassle, but actually a good experience, because you're in a nice location, it is clean, it is safe, you can read, you can talk, you can actually be there with your friends and family. You have good views, right and left, So actually, in some cities, visitors to the city, they go and visit the metro, right? I think this is the case, or will be the case for Riyadh and many other KSA cities. So that's one solution. The other solution is interplay between physical and digital life, right? We kind of now think that there is physical work in the office, that's high quality, and then this kind of remote work far away somewhere in cheaper location, right? But think about the interplay. We did another study called the meta city. The growing trend is actually people live a very good life. If we take Paris, 300 kilometers in Nantes. They commute to Paris only once a week for a nice and big and important meeting in Paris, and then they go to a nice restaurant, and they bring their families, and then they go back to Nantes. Nantes is 4 to 5 times cheaper than Paris in some dimensions. So the house is 3 times bigger. They can afford, domestic animals. They actually having good lives there with the family, and then yes, once a week they do this long commute, which is now a nice commute, less than 1 hour, 350 kilometers. So that's another solution that is possible, that we believe is going to be a good solution. And then maybe a third one is also about this work, right? We have central business districts, right? We have King Abdullah Financial District in Riyadh. And what we see is that there is place for work and time for work. There is place for life and time for life, previously at home. But there is also the third place.
Yes.
Think about, people working from the cafes, and think about people ordering food from the office. And we see that actually technologies are helping the central business districts to be an ecosystem, not just, we're collection offices, and we provide the commute so people can go back home, but ecosystem that also manage the third place in such a way that it actually leads to a productive work for people who want to work in this moment, or productive life if you want to live a productive life.
It's truly integration now, isn't it?
It's integration, and then technologies are more and more providing the solutions. And I would advise that we all think about how technology can help solve the practical problem of real people, rather than, be in other interesting technology solutions.
I love that as a closing message, solving practical, actual problems. I'm afraid we're out of time, even though we could continue this discussion for a long, long time. But I'd love you all to join me, please, in thanking Dr. Adil Al-Zarani from Roshan and Mr. Vladislav Butenko from BCG for their insights here today on future smart cities.